Welcome to Crime Most French, a fortnightly podcast covering intriguing cases carried out on French soil. Researched and narrated by Cedric and rudely interrupted by me, Melanie. We're the true crime podcast on the lines. Crack open le vin and let the mayhem commence.
This is episode 53, the Dupont de Ligonnès murders.
This is the elephant in the room case that we really have to cover.
Yes, yeah, we had to at some point. In April 2011, a family of 6 disappears completely in an unexpected fashion. The parents don't go to work, the kids don't go to school. Ensues years of searches and one of the most famous murder mysteries of modern times.
Yeah, that's the crux, isn't it? It's still a mystery.
Yes. On the 4th of April 2011, Anne, 16, and Benoit, 13, are missing from their school. Their friends try to contact them via text and IM, but nobody can find them. They're worried because it's not like them to miss school. They're good Catholic children, apparently, in a Catholic school, so that's not something you do. A rumor spreads that maybe they left for Australia. The dad, Xavier, 50, was known for liking that country. But the kids' friends are very surprised because they would have been told by Anne and Benoit that they were leaving for Australia. It's not like going away for the weekend.
Well, it's hardly jumping on the Eurostar and going to London.
Exactly. And there's absolutely no way teenagers would keep that kind of secret from their friends.
No.
So their friends are saying something's up.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking one of the longest haul flights to go all the way down to Australia.
Exactly. It's not something you do just like that.
Yeah.
You probably also need visas from France.
Well, it really depends on how long you're staying for, no?
I don't know what the conditions are for French people in Australia. I have no idea. But anyway, it's fishy.
Mm-hmm.
Xavier is contacted by his sister, Christine, and spends 20 to 30 minutes on the phone with him. To her, everything's normal. The kids aren't feeling well, according to him, and that's why they're not at school.
Ah, right, okay.
And then in the evening, he's going to have dinner with his son, one of his sons, in a restaurant. Pretty good restaurant. All is well. As far as she's concerned, she got a good explanation for why the kids are not at school.
So this is the youngest son, isn't it?
No, that is the first one of his. We'll cover that.
Oh, I can't remember what his name is.
Thomas.
Thomas, yeah.
And that's what happens. He has dinner with Thomas, who's 18 at the time, in a restaurant not far from where his son lives, because he's not living at home. He went to a music school, and it's away from home, so he has a student flat in Angers, I think. So that's why he's not home.
So he's still in the same kind of like part of France. They're not. He's not.
The west, roughly. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because we're in Nantes, by the way. This all happens in Nantes.
Yeah, that happens in Nantes. Yes, which is the edge of Brittany. Half of Nantes is not considered in Brittany for the people living in Brittany.
Okay, is it part of Vendée?
They're pedantic. The north side of the river is in Brittany. The south side of the river is not in Brittany. So Nantes is only half in Brittany.
So are they classed as being in the Loire then?
Yes.
Okay.
The waiters remember Xavier and Thomas in the restaurant, so we know for sure that they were there.
All right. Okay.
Thomas spends part of that day with one of his friends, who's also a student in a music school.
Mm-hmm.
The plan was for Thomas to spend the night at his friend's place. But that friend remembers that late in the day, Thomas got a call from his dad, who reported that his wife, his mom, Thomas' mom, had a bicycle accident. And she might be in a coma, she might not be in a coma, she might make it, she might not make it. Something was very fuzzy about that story.
So, haul your ass home, there's a family emergency.
Exactly. Something's happening, you need to come back home. So Thomas goes to Nantes, to the family house, to see his mom. He first has dinner with his friend, and he takes the 10 p.m. train to Nantes.
Mm-hmm.
That is on the 5th evening, I think.
Right.
5th of April evening.
Yeah.
The next day, Thomas' friend, having no news, sends him texts and IMs, and he gets very short replies from Thomas. And they tell him that he's not feeling very well, so he's staying in Nantes for a little while, maybe a few days. And later, Thomas would text his friend again saying that he's running out of battery and his phone is going to die and his dad is trying to find a charger. That's the last time his friend hears from Thomas.
All right.
These are most likely the last time anybody had contact with the family other than Xavier, the dad.
Mm-hmm.
On the 5th of April, an official called huissier, it's a legal position. They're mostly used to be witnesses. So, for example, if you rent a house, for example, and there's a problem with the house and the landlord refuses to fix it by saying that it doesn't exist, you can call a huissier to be a witness, and then you can sue the owner of the house, for example, with a witness.
Right.
They do that a lot. They also deliver court papers.
All right, okay.
So they are kind of like the runarounds of courts and the legal system.
So like a witness for hire.
Yeah, exactly. So anytime, like for example, you have a disagreement with someone,
mm-hmm.
you can ask them to come and to be a witness to the discussion, for example.
Right.
This kind of stuff. So they're professional witnesses and they work for the court as well.
So presumably they have good knowledge of ins and outs of. Are they just there purely on a to be there perspective, just to make sure everything's done by the letter of the law, rather than any kind of ombudsman? They have no power,
but they have the power
mediator.
of being a witness.
Yeah, but they're not mediating anything.
No. That's all they do. They're professional witnesses.
Yeah, right.
So when they deliver papers, they are witnesses that you have received the papers. So that's essentially what they are. They are professional witnesses. So one of those knocks at the door to collect a 20,000 euro debt, but nobody answers.
A 20,000 euro debt?
Yes.
Well, that would keep me awake at night.
Yes. On the next day, Pauline, one of Thomas's ex-girlfriends, is worried about him, so she texts him asking for news because she hasn't heard from him for a few days. She never gets an answer.
That's a problem with teenagers. They have busy social lives.
They're constantly in contact with people, yes. Yeah. So when they disappear, it's noticed very quickly. On the 6th of April, one of Arthur's girlfriends, so another son, the eldest son, who's 20, I think, is worried because she hasn't heard from him either for a few days now. So she goes to the house, knocks on the door, but nobody answers. Arthur is the eldest boy, and he's 20 at the time, and he's not one of Xavier's kids. He is the son of the mom, called Agnès, from an unknown person that is not the dad. So he's been adopted. Yes. He has the name, but he's not genetically related to Xavier.
No, the story is Xavier was dating her for quite a while, and then obviously he wanted to go and broaden his horizons and see new things. So I think they split up for a year, and she got pregnant in that year, didn't she? And then he came back and married her, which was, for a Catholic family, and one of great lineage. Was a bit of an eye opener apparently, because they've got some kind of royal connection, haven't they? The family.
Well, the family has a title, yes. Yeah. They're aristocrats, yes. Yes. On his side.
He's a count or something.
Yes. But the dad was. He didn't seem to be, but he's died. Yes. In the family, it's his brother called Bertram, who inherited the title.
Ah, okay.
It wasn't him. He was the second son. So in Catholic families and aristocratic families, you get nothing. You're appointed to church.
I was going to say, I'm surprised he wasn't a priest.
But it could have been, if it had been a long time ago. Arthur is in a school for a computing degree. Right.
He's not I think the other son was into music or something, wasn't he?
Yes. Not everything is silent though around the house. Xavier apparently sends messages on a Catholic forum on the 7th of April, so 3 days after the disappearance, maybe even on the 8th, from an IP address that is mapped to the house.
Okay.
He also sends an email to his brother, Bertram,
The Count.
saying that everything is fine, and he'll send him more news via Christine, his sister, at some later point. But there's nothing to worry about.
Right.
He also sends an email to his mum and to his sister on the same day to reassure them of the same thing. There's nothing going on, don't worry about it. I might be silent for a few days, but nothing is worrying. There's no reason to worry about things.
That's when somebody's saying to you, you're not hearing from us because we're fine. Instantly, it's when somebody says to you, don't look behind you.
Yes.
You instantly start you instantly want to start looking behind you. And that to me would just send so many alarm bells. So many flags and so many alarm bells going off.
Yes. Nothing happens for a few days, as he said. And as the family and friends are reassured by those emails, nobody's looking for the family. On the 11th, a letter arrives at the younger kids' school. So that is Benoit and Anne, 16 and 13, explaining that the kids won't come back to school because the family is moving to Australia. It was unexpected and it was for work. So don't expect the kids to come back.
Once again, we've got that Australasian connection again.
Yes. The school where Agnès, the mum, was working, she was working there as a supervisor during recess and lunch, and she was also cleaning and on occasion replacing teachers when they were off sick.
Right. So she was kind of like not like a jobs.
Well, I guess cleaning lady / supervisor / replacement teacher or something. She was doing whatever needed to be done at the school.
Yeah, it's a very strange mix of things, isn't it, really?
It is, yes. So at her school, they receive a handwritten letter on that day as well. The letter also explains that as the family is moving to Australia, she quits her job. So they shouldn't expect her to come back.
This is a resignation starting immediately with effect from the end of the sentence.
Which is weird because that can't happen in France. But
no, I don't think it can legally happen anywhere.
Yeah, but I guess they didn't have the choice. There's a typed letter as well that is sent to friends of the family, explaining that Xavier has been working for the DEA, yes, the US Drug Enforcement Agency.
Okay.
And that the family is being extracted from France to the US for protection.
Now, he doesn't have any connection to like the French equivalent of the DEA here. I mean, he doesn't work for the gendarmes or... No,
it just says DEA. The letter also goes on to say that, therefore, it will be impossible to contact them because they will get new identities to hide in the US. And nobody should therefore assume that they would get contact or they would get replies or anything. They will just disappear for possibly a few years.
But what I can't understand is he doesn't have any background in doing work like this at all.
There kind of is. There's a backstory. The letter is like 8 pages long.
Oh, right, okay.
And he was running a one employee company, which was surveying like hotels and restaurants and clubs for business people who travel a lot. The letter also says that they will live somewhere warm most of the time and where there's good music.
Right.
The letter explains.
So not in Florida then?
New Orleans, maybe?
It could be.
Don't know. The letter also asks to spread a rumor on social media that the family moved to Australia to blur the trail.
Oh, right, I see. Hence the Australian connection.
Yes. The story about the DEA, when he explains it, he says that because he had contacts and was visiting clubs, he got into contact with drug dealers in those clubs and therefore had knowledge of drug dealings around clubs, and that's how he was contacted by the DEA to be an informant.
Right, so it's almost given it some legitimacy then.
Yeah, but the DEA has nothing to do with France. So it still makes no sense whatsoever. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But he explained it and people bought it.
Yeah.
People stopped asking questions. They thought it was a reasonable explanation for people disappearing.
They don't necessarily have jurisdiction here, but at least, drug dealers don't operate within,
Yes.
the lines of...
He used a thing that people know about,
Yes.
kind of made a story that's half believable around it,
Mhm.
and therefore people stopped asking these questions. So they were happy that, okay, they disappeared. We'll hear from them in a few years' time. Let's not worry about it.
Right.
That was the plan. The letter also explains that he might have been discovered in his informant role, and that's why he was extracted to the US.
Right, okay.
So
He's really making it sound like, it's once again, it's not quite a police drama this time. We're talking about full-blown film.
Yes. Yeah, it's a completely unbelievable story, but there's so many details, and the letter is so long that people just thought, nobody would make up something that complicated and that long. It has to be true, and therefore they stopped asking questions. But none of it makes any sense whatsoever.
Yeah.
So that's how he explains it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all a bit fishy. It's a mystery to me why people don't ask questions, but they didn't ask questions. If I received that letter, I would know everybody's dead. Because that just doesn't make sense. If my sister sent that letter to my family and to us, I would know she's dead. Because that's just not a story that works. But anyway.
Yeah, I just found it weird that he put everybody's name on the bottom, of the letter. It was from the whole family.
What you didn't see is that underneath the names, it says it's going to be really difficult to get used to our new names.
Yeah.
On the 13th of April, a neighbor of the family house finally calls the police. She's worried that the house shutters have been closed for a week or so, and Agnès' car is still parked in the street. Mm-hmm. So they disappeared without their car, and they abandoned it, which she finds strange. She has a shop nearby. She was sometimes doing some clothes fixes for the kids. So to her, it's like the family's gone, but not quite. So she calls the police. So the police comes to the house. They get a locksmith to open the door because it's locked. Mm-hmm. They look around, but they don't see anything suspicious. Everything is in place. There's even some clean dishes in the dishwasher. There's really, as far as they're concerned, no reason to worry. Mm-hmm. So they go away.
Yeah. It is very strange for people who don't live in France. It's very much... Shutters aren't really decoration here. They're very, very functional. They keep out the sun in the summertime, and they keep your house a lot warmer in the winter if you keep them closed. And one thing you are supposed to do, which this woman said, they even went away and left their shutters open when they were on holiday, which you're not supposed to do.
You're actually required by your insurance to do so.
So yeah,
if you have shutters, your insurance requires your shutters to be closed if you leave your house more than 24 hours. And if you get burgled and you didn't do it, they're going to say, not our problem, you didn't lock your house.
Yeah. But so it was, very, very obvious because their shutters were always open for them to be always closed that long. It was bizarre.
Yes.
Especially, as you say, the car, the mother's car was there, Agnes's car was
in the
there.
street, yes. On the 19th of April, the police opens a missing person inquiry. Mm-hmm. The whole family is reported missing, and nationwide notices are sent to all police forces.
I mean, that's quite a while after, isn't it? I mean, they were last seen on the 4th and the 5th.
It's like 2 weeks after.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes. The police visits the house again, and they go back several times, but they never discover anything really to worry them. It's just the house is empty. It's like people have gone on holiday. Everything is in its place. There's nothing seriously missing.
Some of the beds have got their sheets missing, but nothing.
But when you go on holiday for a while, you sometimes take the sheets off. So there's really nothing. They look around, but they don't see anything that worries them. So they just go away every time.
But the pictures being missing is kind of weird in the frames of the house.
Yes.
That's weird. But I think they take a while to pick up on that.
Yeah. They come 5 times without seeing anything.
Yeah.
The 6th time, one of the cops looks under the terrace. It's not. They call it a terrace, but it's not a terrace. It's really a platform at the top of the stairs that runs along the house. Mm-hmm. It's not a terrace. There's no room for a table or anything like that. It's just you walk along the house, along the windows. On that platform, but that's it. It's quite small.
It seems like a very typical design
My parents had one.
From like
house.
the 20s or something, you know, or even the 50s.
Later, yeah, their house was from the 70s and it had one.
Yeah.
So it was fairly common at the time. So anyway, one of the cops looks under there and there was some rubble and branches and stuff. And somehow, and I don't know how, that's never explained, she thinks it's fishy. So she decides to have a closer look. And she discovers a leg.
Right, okay.
So they start digging.
That would make you jump.
Yes. And then they found a torso.
Right.
And then the rest of her body. And it's all buried about 50 centimeters under the ground.
So shallow.
Fairly shallow. That's on the left door, on the left of a door that goes to the basement.
Mm-hmm.
The body was in sleeping clothes, wrapped up in a sleeping bag, then in rubbish bags, and then under a thin layer of quicklime, and then under some soil.
Right. So somebody's really gone out of their way to kind of like
Properly
cover
packaged.
up any smell.
Yeah. Properly packaged the bodies. The body is identified as Arthur.
Right. Eldest son.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
The quicklime puzzled the cops for a long time because there isn't enough to do anything to the bodies, because quicklime reacts with water. So
to put it somewhere that's damp but doesn't get direct rain.
Yeah, normally you put it on the body to kind of mummify the body so that it dries really quick and doesn't smell.
Mm-hmm.
But that wasn't enough, and it wasn't in contact with the bodies. It was just like a thin layer of powder on top of...
It was an afterthought.
Kind of. They suspect eventually that the purpose was to mask the smell, because all water vapor evaporating from the bodies and carrying smells would be trapped by that quicklime by a chemical reaction.
Right.
And therefore it wouldn't smell. So they think that's what he
was
what
going
has
for.
been done.
Mm-hmm.
But they're not sure. It is really puzzling. They've never seen that before. It was really strange. On the other side of the door, they decide to dig as well.
Mm-hmm.
And they discover a whole bunch of bodies. They discover the 3 kids, they discover the mom, and they discover the 2 dogs. And they're all buried in layers, like lasagna style.
One after like a tomb.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody dug a big hole
Right.
and buried them one on top of the other in that big hole.
So it's like I'm going to say an underground mausoleum, but
Kind of.
it's just a big grave.
Yes. And they've been buried the same way, so wrapped into a sheet or a sleeping bag, and then plastic rubbish bags, and then some quicklime, and then some soil, and then start again with the next bodies.
Mm-hmm.
That's how they've been buried.
And with lots of religious artifacts as well, lots of Catholic
Yes.
chatskis.
Each of the bodies had something. They had a picture, a small statue, or a book, or something like that with next to the body.
Rosary beads and stuff
Yes,
like that.
like it was a Catholic burial, but outside the cemetery.
Yeah. That's just odd.
Yes. When they discover that, the police decide that it must be somebody who knew them and therefore wanted to be nice with the dead bodies. But they don't really understand why.
Yeah, I mean, they're buried with respect. They're not, turfed out of a train or,
Yes.
cut up into bits.
Yes. The 2 dogs kind of give a clue to when the family was killed, because apparently, according to neighbors, they barked like crazy on the 3rd and 4th of April and then were completely silent. So the police assumed that they were killed between the 3rd and 4th of April.
So I wonder if they were just done away with to keep them silent.
Most likely, yes.
Not something I'm hugely comfortable with talking about.
The police noticed, though, that there's one missing thing, and that's the dad. He's not one of the bodies. So they start looking for him.
Yes. Not terribly surprisingly.
Yes. They look for financial activity, for example, in the family's account, and they discover that Xavier, the dad, has been on the move for a few days. The 11th to 12th of April, for example, he spent in a hotel in Toulouse, and he pays by credit card. He then spends the night of the 12th to the 13th in a hotel in Var, that's on the Mediterranean coast.
Yeah. Under
a fake name. He calls himself Xavier Laurent. He pays by credit card again. And they're a bit surprised by that because it's like he's going away, but leaving a trail behind him by paying by credit card. And nobody on the run would be stupid enough to pay by credit card because that's the first thing the cops are going to check.
And also, I think the speed that he goes is incredibly... if you're wanting to actually see what the people are like and, want a slightly different narrative than Cedric and I are giving you, that's in the first series of the rebooted Unsolved Mysteries, and they highlight, he goes from Nantes to La Rochelle, which is not a long drive at all. I mean, it's only a couple of hours.
Yeah.
And he stops and has a meal and then stops overnight. I mean, I know La Rochelle's lovely and it's our, department capital, but, you think if he'd killed your family, you'd be, wanting to put further distance between you and your family, and as you say, not pay by credit card. It's very bizarre.
Yeah.
It's almost like he wants to be followed and found and wants to be tracked to going to Paca.
Yeah, but why? That makes no sense. Nobody knows why that would be the case. That's what it looks like, but it makes no sense.
Well, I mean, they hint it's a pilgrimage to where he first started going out with Agnes, wasn't it?
Yes. That's where they lived after leaving Versailles before going to Nantes.
Yes. Yeah, they met in Versailles.
Yeah, they were both living in Versailles at the time, yes. They moved to the southeast, and then they tried to move to the US. He spent lots of time in the US. He spent like 18 months on his own in the US. Then he took the family for 9 months in the US, and they wanted to move there, but it failed. So then they moved back to France and they settled in Nantes.
And Nantes, yeah.
On the 14th of April, he withdraws 13 euros from an ATM in Var still. He's captured on CCTV.
Yeah.
And then he spends the night at a local cheap hotel. Again, he's picked up on CCTV. And the next day, he leaves the hotel on foot and abandons his car.
Ew, so you actually stayed at that F1 hotel?
Yes.
It's not one I would recommend staying. Yeah. It's a bit rough. Not rough, but a bit basic.
The car is discovered during the night of the 21st to the 22nd of April. That was completely random. It was a police patrol that was checking random reg plates.
Okay, yeah.
And they discovered that it was a missing car.
Ding, ding, ding.
So that's how they found it. Otherwise, they had no clue where the car was.
Yeah. The scenery around about that piece of the Mediterranean coast, once you go inland, is very savage and not savage, but very wild and very mountainous, and lots of trees. So it's a beautiful piece of the country, but it is wild, and you can imagine, it would be easy to go missing there.
Yes, that was also where there was a resistance group during the Second World War, because it was easy to hide.
Yeah.
His trail stops there.
But not surprisingly.
There's no more trace of him anywhere after that day. In the meantime, an autopsy is performed on the bodies that have been found, and they discover that all the family members received at least 2 shots in the head from a .22 long rifle gun.
Right.
Xavier had inherited it from his dad about 3 months earlier. The shots were usually from the side, so above the ear, and they had contact burns. So the gun was actually put against the head and shot. So
they'd essentially been drugged and shot in their sleep.
Yes. They also received, some of them received 2 to 3 shots in the chest.
No, that seems overkill.
Yes. And all the kids, had sleeping pill residue in the blood.
But not the mother.
Yeah, the mum didn't really have sleeping pills like the kids. She had escitalopram, which was an antidepressant. And she has traces of another sleeping pill, but she was known to use them to sleep because she wasn't sleeping well. So that's not really surprising. It feels like Xavier waited for his wife to just fall asleep normally instead of drugging her. He only drugged the kids.
Well, I guess, she's probably used to him being in the room.
Yes, and he knew she would take those pills, so all he had to do is wait.
Yeah. Whereas he doesn't know whether he would wake the kids up, I guess. If he was going into their room, they might wake up, and I guess it's easier for him to shoot a non-moving, sleeping
Well, if you want to be sure, yes.
body than one
easier.
That's, what are you doing, Dad? Why,
Yeah, exactly.
Why have you got that gun?
Yes. So it's a lot easier that way. The mum had a breathing machine when she was sleeping, and it recorded the time and was sending statistics to the doctor and stuff. And the police saw that it stopped just after 3 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
So what they think happened was he waited until the mum fell asleep with her own sleeping pills and then killed her, and then went round to kill the other kids, which had been drugged by him.
Yeah. It
So
looked
they
like
think
a
that's the
sleep
order it
apnea
happened.
machine or something, didn't it?
So what?
It looks like she had sleep apnea. It looked
Yeah,
like a
yeah,
sleep
yeah, she
apnea
probably
machine.
did, yes. In the descriptions, it just said it was a machine to help her breathe, but yeah, it was sleep apnea most likely. When I was reading about the autopsies, the thing that surprised me is that all the members received shots in the head, and you would assume that even with sleeping pills, the others would wake up. But the weapon used was the .22, which is essentially a toy gun.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not very noisy. It's very slow bullets. He had also somehow put a silencer on it, which as far as I know are illegal in France. You're not allowed to buy a silencer in France, but somehow he had one. So most likely the small gun and the silencer made it very, very quiet. At least quiet enough for people who had sleeping pills not to wake up. Because I think I took sleeping pills once or twice in my life, and I was still waking up because of noises. So unless he gave them massive amounts, and I'm not too sure how you can do that, most likely it's just because the gun was very quiet.
Mm-hmm.
And that's also why the neighbors never heard anything.
Well, didn't you say that they had the burn marks?
They had burn marks on the head, yeah.
So, I mean, you could presume it's not going to make that much of a noise if it's
No.
point blank.
Yes. Also, the police was surprised that there wasn't blood everywhere. It wasn't a bloodbath. I think they found blood on the floor of the kitchen, but that's really the only place they found blood.
Mm-hmm.
But when you think about it, a .22 is a very slow gun. The bullets are extremely slow, very small. They go into the body and they don't come out.
Yeah, you're not talking about an AR-16 or something.
Yes. Or even
a 45 or something,
like that, which makes a massive exit hole. The bullets were probably still in the head. I didn't see any mention of that, but most likely the bullets were still in the head, and that's why there was no blood. Tiny hole going in, and just no exit wound. So there's no reason for blood anywhere. Most likely the blood that was in the kitchen is when he carried the bodies, and a few drops fell, but then that's about it. It wasn't a bloodbath.
No.
But that would only work, of course, if you have everybody asleep.
I mean, he was very much an archetypal. I'm from somewhere around about Paris. I mean, he's not going to have a shooting, like a hunting rifle or anything. This is very much an odd choice of weapon.
Yes and no. It's a kind of gun you give kids, or at least you used to, in the 50s, 60s, 70s. I know my uncle got one when he was a kid.
Oh, God.
.22 are really considered toy guns here. I'm not even sure you needed a license until now. I guess I'm sure you do now. But in the 60s, 70s, I'm pretty sure you didn't even need a license to get a .22. So it was a toy. You could still kill people. Of course. But it was a toy.
Yes.
So yeah, it's a thing that possibly his dad had been given by his own dad in like the 30s or 40s.
Yeah, something
and at the time it was completely normal and nobody thought about it. And he discovered it when his dad died.
Yeah.
So that's not a gun he had himself. And according to the family, he had never been interested in guns before. He had bought the bullets in a local armory shop on the 12th of March. So
that's quite a bit
3 weeks before the murder. He used them to go to a firing range. He's been apparently 4 times in a month or so. Okay. To use that new gun.
So he knows.
He inherited.
Yeah, he can build up kind of a relationship with it and know how it's going to behave.
It was probably useless if his plan was to kill people with a gun against the head, but maybe at the time he wasn't too sure how he was going to do it. So he thought, oh, maybe I'm going to have to shoot them when they're running or something. So I need to be able to aim and kill them, maybe. Because otherwise, really, to put a gun against somebody's head and pull the trigger, why do you need to train?
Well, maybe that was what kind of like helped him decide. Maybe he'd thought he just didn't have the skills.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe it was rubbish.
Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't heard any summary of his performance at the shooting range. But yeah, maybe it was utterly garbage. Or maybe the gun was garbage.
Well, I think the problem is also neither of us are particularly gun literate.
No.
So we wouldn't know.
No.
But
these guns are very short range anyway. So it could also be that they decided if they start running, I'm never going to get them. So I need to find a way to stop them from moving. And making them sleep is the easiest.
I still think that's a psychological problem rather than it being a practical problem, that he made them sleep.
Could be. I don't know. He doesn't want to interact with them, I guess. Maybe. The judge in charge quickly allows the inhumation of the bodies, so they get buried very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And also the family is dissuaded from identifying the bodies. So nobody from the family has actually identified the bodies.
Yeah, I mean, if they've been underground and been not in contact with quicklime, but I mean, they're not going to be in great
Also,
nick.
they had been buried for maybe up to 3 weeks.
Yeah, it's not good.
So yeah, they might not have been good
decomposition.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't the height of summer, but even though,
yes,
still not
it could be
nice.
why, I don't know.
Yeah,
But that raised suspicions as well. Nobody understands why the judge allowed them to be buried so fast. They could have kept them in the morgue for ever if they wanted to, until the end of the inquiries. But they are allowed to be buried extremely fast, long before the inquiries are finished. But
I mean, the problem is it's so unprecedented. I mean, it's just not something that happens here.
No.
It's, the judge probably wanted to help the family move on from it and the country moving on from it, because it was such
I don't remember it at the time.
I do.
Oh, I was in the UK.
No, we
were here. I don't even remember.
It was in 2011. I remember it. I remember the big hunt for him.
Okay. About 1,400 people attended the funeral. There's a photo of the whole street covered in people.
I mean, it's just so... I mean, there were so... If it had been now, they would be Instagram family. There were... The daughter was, very photogenic. She did kind of like catalogue modelling, apparently. Yes. Yeah. And, I mean, they were a very picture-perfect. Mm-hmm. And it was just so brutal. So, I'm not surprised that many people turned out.
A little bit of background now to understand a little bit more on the motivations. Xavier Dupont de Ligonnès was born on the 9th of January 1961. He comes from an aristocratic family, as we said. They originally come from the center of France. Mm-hmm. When Xavier was about 10 years old, his dad, who was known to be a playboy and an adventurer, left the family home, leaving his wife raise the kids in Versailles.
Okay.
Xavier's mom, called Geneviève, I guess, is said to be ultra-Catholic. She's issued from a bourgeois family, so she's not aristocratic. Mm. After her husband left, she created a prayer group called Philadelphia, mm-hmm. based on the book of the Apocalypse. And the French considers that group to be a sect, and they've been investigated since 2019 by a judge.
Uh-oh. It
is now run by Xavier's sister, Christine.
So they're a bit culty round the edges.
They're super culty.
I mean, they never mentioned anything like that in...
No. Mm. Xavier's work activities are a bit fuzzy. He created a whole bunch of companies over time, but none of them really worked. None of them even hired employees. Only one kind of started. It was a traveling guide for traveling businessmen going around the country. So they were testing and listing restaurants and hotels and clubs and stuff. And that's how he was explaining that he had been in contact with the drug dealers.
So what was he trying to specifically aim kind of like
it's like a Michelin guide for business people,
or like a routier. I mean, there's
that's exactly what it was. Yeah, so the idea wasn't original.
No,
but that was his idea.
I mean, there's two huge companies that do it in France. Why bother setting up a?
I know, but that was his idea.
No wonder he was a failed businessman.
He at some point hired a few people in the company, and they were laid off very quickly after that.
Yeah.
On the last year they filed their accounts, the company made €3,000 profit
Wow.
in 1 year, so essentially zero.
Yeah, I mean,
It just
I
wasn't
have to say, how many true crime stuff have we listened to where, the family started running into financial business because the father had set up businesses that just went nowhere and failed.
Yeah, but he didn't have a good idea.
No, definitely not.
That's the idea he tried to start in the US as well. So when he went around the US for 18 months on his own, one of the things he tried to do is create the same company for the same thing, and it also failed. Agnes, the mum, was born on the 9th of November 1962. Her family is originally from Egypt. One of her ancestors was a doctor in Egypt and moved to France in 1900 also.
Okay.
She's also ultra-Catholic, of course.
Yes.
She's part of the local Catholic group, and she goes to Mass all the time. Before the murders, the rental agreement on the house, they didn't own their house, they rented it, was cancelled. And the bank accounts were emptied. And the kids' schools were paid. Part of the house, that's something also they don't mention in Unsolved Mysteries, part of the house was emptied. So when they say the house didn't look weird, if you knew the house, you could see that stuff was missing.
Right.
There was a whole bunch of stuff like furniture and stuff that were actually removed from the house.
So it's like he's liquidated.
It's like, yeah,
stuff.
He prepared to go. So he settled the accounts so that nobody would look for money.
Mm-hmm.
He emptied his bank accounts, and he obviously emptied some of the stuff from the house. I don't know why. Maybe
he'd been on the Bon Coin and was selling stuff.
Well,
off.
It could be. Maybe he sold everything that he thought had any value to get money out of it. So he had the most amount of money to go on the run. So that's what happened before the murders. That's what's weird. That happened before they were killed. So they must have known, or he hid it from the family and nobody knew.
Yeah, that's weird.
I don't know how much the mum was involved in finances. Maybe she wasn't at all, so she wouldn't know.
Oh, she was a devout Catholic. Maybe not. Maybe they were very traditional.
Yeah, I don't know. Xavier is also seen about a week after we think the murders happen, on the 3rd and 4th of April, buying large rubbish bags, cement, quicklime, but in small quantities. So he went around a whole bunch of shops to buy small quantities of quicklime for each shop, so not to raise suspicion.
Alarms, yeah.
Obviously, he was burying the bodies at the time. So it could be that he killed his family on the 3rd and 4th of April, but then kept them somewhere for a while, and then only a week later buried them.
Yeah.
But it's just suspicion. It's very hard to prove. You can't prove that the bags that have been found with the bodies are the bags he bought in the shop a week later. It's impossible to know. He could have been using other bags and then, I don't know, for some reason decided you need more bags. I don't know. Some people have tried to trace his activities on the internet. There was a Facebook group, for example, created to do that. They discovered that he was extremely active on the religious forum. And he was so extreme in what he was saying that he was too extreme for the forum.
Wow.
He was banned. He was apparently very aggressive, and what he was saying was disturbing, apparently.
So basically, some of his mother's kind of like zealot group.
They created a prayer group based on the apocalypse, and I suspect he inherited that from her.
Yes.
But at the same time, he never went to church. So obviously he must have considered church too mainstream or too backwards or too slow or whatever.
Yeah, it was like Bible light.
Yeah. So his stuff was more hardcore. So he didn't go to church, and he ran his own group and went on Catholic forums and scared people there.
Yeah. Dear.
Yeah. After the police discovers all that, they start looking for him and try to find where he is, because he obviously went away, but the trail went cold. So they're looking for what could have happened. They try to contact everybody he used to know, and they go quite far back. They contact ex-girlfriends, for example.
Okay.
There's one that happened to be difficult to find, and they thought, oh, maybe she ran with him. She was German, and she nearly got married to him in the early 80s. So before he met Agnes, he was engaged and was getting married to that woman, and it didn't happen. So they thought, oh, maybe he did stay in contact. They know that. Maybe he went back to her and they ran together.
Mm-hmm. Rekindled something.
Yeah. And the fact that she was hard to find kind of confirmed that it was a possible story. So they convinced the German police to create an appeal on cop show on ZDF, national TV, Germany. And it was planned to happen until the victim's family pointed out that her email address was in the police file.
Okay.
So the family read the police file and found her email address. The police didn't read their own file.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That doesn't inspire a lot of confidence, does it?
Yeah. Another line of inquiry was his time in the US, because he spent 18 months on his own, then 6 months again the year later, and then 9 months going around in an RV with the family a couple of years later. So he spent several years in the US, and they thought that maybe he created contacts there that allowed him to disappear over there. So they contacted all his business contacts that they knew about. They even checked the company that he had created over there, and they realized that it foiled. It was just...
No, it was just so bad.
The idea was stupid. So nothing came out of that. All the people he had contacts with before said, no, we don't know who he is. So they gave up on that. Another line of inquiry was searching the caves and the gorges and the rivers around where the car was abandoned. Because it's like rugged country, lots of small mountains and
as I mentioned earlier.
And all that, yeah. So they searched that for many, many months. They must have invested so much money and time looking for all the caves and having like spelunkers go down and stuff. Because they thought that he took the gun, which is what they see on the CCTV when he leaves the F1 hotel.
Yes.
And he just went into the backcountry and killed himself. So they wanted to find the body. I find that very difficult to believe because given his personality, I don't think he would kill himself.
No.
And like they said in Unsolved Mysteries, 98% of cases where the dad kills his family, he kills himself straight away, on the spot.
There's also the glaring fact that he's a Catholic.
Yes.
I mean, you can ask God. You can ask God for forgiveness for killing your family, but
not for suicide. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I find that very hard to believe, and I can't understand why they spent so long and invested so much resources in a story that's not even likely.
Yeah. To me, it just felt like he was creating a false lead.
Yeah.
He was just trying to create a scenario so he could disappear.
Or maybe he was just taunting them. He was just saying, "Okay, follow me, and you'll see if you find me."
Well, that's what I think.
Yeah, it could be.
I mean, why?
It makes no sense.
Why empty the bank accounts and stuff and then carry on using the credit cards?
Yeah, I know. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. I think he's trying to create... I think he thinks he's way smarter than he is, and he was going to create a scenario where, they're going to think I've gone down to Paca and killed myself because that's why I started a relationship with the mother of my kids.
Yeah, that sounds like a likely story. Yeah. Yes. So that's why I don't believe at all for the story. But they did find the body in 2013.
But it obviously wasn't his.
After autopsy, no, they decided it wasn't his. I don't think they know who that was, but it wasn't his.
Well, I guess they could check it against his brother and sister. Well, and is his crazy mother still alive?
I don't know. Now probably not. At the time possibly. Don't know. In 2015, a walker, and I don't know if he had a dog, discovers bones in the forest around that place. Again, an autopsy concludes that it's not him.
It's not him.
For example, there was a surgical metal bar in the arm, for example, like you get when you break your arm really badly.
Does it have a serial number that you can track?
No, they didn't do that, but nobody in the family said that he ever broke his arm, so he had no reason to have that.
So it's definitely not him.
So they decided, no, it can't be him. Okay. So that was another one, but they found lots of bodies.
I guess somebody gets closure. One family gets closure, which is quite good.
Later in 2015, the same year, a local journalist in Nantes received a photo of the two sons that said that I'm still alive. That's what it said, at the back of the photos. Okay. And there was also a very weird sentence that I can't even understand. It's phrased very strangely, and the grammar makes no sense. I don't know what it's supposed to mean. Also, nobody authenticated that letter. Nobody said, oh yeah, that's his writing. So that was abandoned there. They don't think it is actually him.
Somebody was just playing a really sick joke.
But somebody who had a photo of the two sons,
Yeah.
which is strange.
Yeah, that is weird.
But nobody knows where it comes from. It's possibly not his. We don't know. In 2018, the police searches a monastery that could have hidden Xavier. It's not far from where his car was found.
So we're still down in Var then?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He was very religious, and as we said,
Yes.
too extreme for normal Catholics. He could have sought shelter in a monastery.
Yeah, that's plausible.
And it wouldn't be the first time that the church hides fugitives in monasteries.
Mm.
The monastery had come up in the inquiry very early because it had connections with him.
So this is still an active.
Oh yeah, they're still searching for him.
place.
These
No. The monastery was still.
Oh yeah, it's still
wasn't
there.
like an abandoned
No.
monastery.
It
wasn't
is
like a medieval.
It's a working monastery.
Right.
What made them go back in 2018, so like 7 years later,
Yeah.
is because some people reported that they saw him at mass there.
Okay.
So they went there and looked for him. And they did find somebody who looked like him, who was one of the priests in the monastery. But when they compared the guy's fingerprints, they were close. Apparently, his fingerprints match 5 out of 13 points.
Wow. Okay.
So that's surprisingly close. But other biometric information, like for example the distance between the two eyes
Okay.
and DNA, didn't match.
Yeah.
So eventually they said it's not him.
If it had been the 50s, he would have been in prison. But
Possibly dead.
yes.
Executed probably. Yeah. He was obviously close enough that the police can't even decide if it was him or not. Given it was 7 years later, it was a bit older, it could have changed a little bit.
It could have been,
So they were really confused by that
Yes.
dude. So it's not entirely surprising that people who were at mass, seeing that guy, thought, that's him.
Well, I mean, I've already compared him to somebody who's famous, not and like a character actor that I've seen in various different. I went, oh, that's so and so from such and such.
Yes.
So it's not surprising that someone else would look like him because he doesn't. I mean, he's not like Charles Lawton. He's not got a hugely ugly face or a characterful face. He's just he's a dude.
Yeah.
He looks like a random French dude.
Yes, you will forget him after you see him.
He's not like you. You and I could never rob a bank because we're so distinctive, looking. I'm very, very short, and and I have short, really, really white bleached hair, and you've got a big, huge beard and a bald head. So we would. Well, maybe if we were at kind of like a Metallica concert, we wouldn't stick out so much, but.
In 2019, the Parisien, which is a national newspaper, published an article reporting that he had been found and he had been arrested at Glasgow airport.
Oh,
of
yes.
all places.
Yes.
The article said that the journalist who wrote the article checked 5 different sources and the scoop was reliable.
Okay.
It turned out that what really happened was that the UK police arrested a guy at Glasgow airport. That's true, because they thought that maybe it was him. So they notified the French police via Interpol, saying, we have someone
who might be.
Can you check if that's him?
Yeah.
And journalists being lazy, as we know,
yes.
the journalists who reported on it didn't read the whole thing and therefore didn't notice that they were asking for information. They weren't saying
They weren't
him.
saying, we've got your man here.
Exactly. But the next day, of course, a whole bunch of newspapers copied the article.
Yeah.
So then it started to spread.
Yeah, that's right. That caused a big splash. Ooh, we finally found him.
Yeah. The French judge in charge reminded people that nothing had been proved, not to get too keen on finding him when he wasn't there. And eventually they confirmed that it wasn't him. They had tested that guy's DNA and it wasn't him. So that was false lead, I guess. It kind of looked a little bit like him, apparently. I don't remember it, but there was really no reason to think it was him.
No. Well, as I said, I mean, he was just a dude.
Yeah.
Just somebody who's, 10 years older than me and, no I can't even think of how to describe him. He's just, you know.
The only thing I could describe him with is he had weird teeth on the left side.
Yeah,
There's a weird gap
did.
between canine and...
Yes.
But it's easy to change.
That's very true.
So
that
that wouldn't really work.
But, he's average height. He's got an average amount of hair on his head. It's dark brown. He's got brown eyes. And, I mean, he could probably grow a beard in about 3 days. He looks like he's got that heavy muzzle, kind of like that permanent 5 o'clock shadow that Homer Simpson has. That would be all I could think of describing him.
Yeah. So as you might have guessed by now, it's still an unresolved crime, an unresolved disappearance. Mm-hmm. Christine, his sister, still maintains that his family and her brother moved to the US for their safety. She still maintains that story that she received in the letter is true.
Okay.
She also maintains that the bodies that were found under the house are not the kids, and the fact that the family was never asked to confirm or identify the bodies is her proof.
Okay, so she's put 2 and 2 together and come up with a number which is not 4.
Yes, yeah. It's true that there were some things that were badly done in the initial inquiry.
Yeah.
For example, the coroner couldn't date when the bodies, the kids were killed, for example. He said it was between 10 and 21 days before they were discovered.
It must be difficult.
That's a huge gap.
Yeah, but it must be difficult, though, eh? I mean...
I guess he's qualified, and if he couldn't do it, he couldn't do it. So
I mean,
it must be difficult.
Beyond a certain point, I mean, sometimes you can, if somebody has eaten something distinctive and it's in their stomach and you have a record of what they've been eating on a specific day, then you can date it very well. But I mean, not everything is... Science isn't that good.
No. Also, apparently the description of the bodies in what is equivalent to a coroner's report aren't very good. So from the description, you can't really tell who it is. And there's been no DNA check done.
So was this done locally in Nantes? Because perhaps...
It probably would have been, yes.
Perhaps, I mean, you tend not to be doing day-to-day autopsies on bodies that have been under the ground for that long. So it could be that it's not been well done because the person wasn't really well
that's
versed.
likely, yes.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, also, it's not, this kind of murders don't happen very often.
No.
Well, murders happen very rarely in France.
Yes.
So it's likely that the guy who's playing the coroner's role didn't really have much experience of that.
But I mean, if this was in the northeast of Paris, then
they would have more experience.
They would have more
yes.
experience of of doing autopsies.
Yes.
On bodies that have died under suspicious circumstances.
Yeah. So she uses that
these as evidence,
as proof for her story.
So we've got the whole correlation and causation thing going on.
Well, we have more like she has an agenda.
Yeah. Oh, totally, yes.
She found scraps of information that maybe could perhaps go in that direction.
It could also be just a coping mechanism for her.
It could be.
She maybe doesn't want to give hope, and she doesn't want to face up to the fact that her brother and his family are dead and gone.
Apparently, she has a blog where she used to. I don't know if she still does, but she used to have a blog where she was posting and saying, "Oh, they're not dead," and blah blah blah. So yeah, it could be I have no idea why she does that, but she obviously wants to believe that.
Yeah.
She also says that she received an email. And a couple of her friends received an email as well in 2010. So we're talking the year before the murders. Saying that Xavier, who sent the email, hoped that if something happened, the police, through their inquiry, even if proof was very believable, wouldn't convince his father and his family that accidents were provoked by him.
Okay.
It's very cryptic.
Yeah.
It seems to point to that story.
Yeah.
And he calls them accidents, and he says essentially that it wasn't him, and he hopes the police is not going to happen. But that was the year before the murder. Yeah,
it's a very cryptic way.
It is weird.
If my family turns up dead and burned, it wasn't me.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's more like that. It's not even if, it's like when.
When it happens, yeah.
So it is very, very,
yeah.
very
When
strange.
Agnes and the kids and the 2 dogs are found underneath the house, it wasn't me.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It is weird, but she says she has that email. I haven't seen it, and I don't know if anybody has seen it, but she says she has that email, and therefore, it's not him.
Do you know, I don't know what you think. What do you think? Where do you think he is?
That's impossible to know. I have no idea. I would go where he's unlikely to be found. So in the middle of nowhere, where
you think maybe as the Unsolved Mysteries did postulate that he maybe went to either Hamburg or the port next to Marseille.
No, I wouldn't stay in Europe. It's too easy to be found.
No, and then hop a boat to,
or even rent a car from somewhere with somebody not asking too many questions, or even steal a car and then drive to, who knows, Istanbul or whatever.
Yeah.
Where nobody will ask any questions about
and to
him.
Just jump a boat there.
Take a boat to, I don't know, Egypt. And then from Egypt go to Iran, and from Iran go to India, and nobody will find him in India. Something like that, because he, as you said, he has dark hair, brown eyes, a little bit of hair on his face.
Yes,
he could disappear in places like India, no bother.
Totally, he could almost pass for being of Arabian descent, kind of like somewhere down the line. He doesn't look Arabian, but he could pass for, my grandfather might have been.
Yeah, if you could get there, and that's where I would aim. If I looked like him, I would aim for one of these places.
Yeah.
Unsolved Mystery says he would be in South America and would disappear. He doesn't look South American to me.
No, he doesn't, no.
So I don't think that would be a good idea. But somewhere Middle East, or even Middle East, he could move to Lebanon.
Yes, that's or
something like that. He would totally disappear there.
But he just as a businessman, he was just so inept. So I don't know. Is this the one plan that he actually set out and he managed to succeed at?
It could be, because he had emptied the family. The family didn't have any money.
No, I mean they'd blown all their money, hadn't they?
Yeah.
I mean,
for
me, the death of his father. And the fact he was just a huge giant, failure at business. Just obviously he just snapped and just decided that's it.
But he could have had a few thousands of euros anyway, at least.
Squirreled away somewhere.
And that might be enough to just go to a place and then just live off the land, really.
Then off the grid.
Small jobs or whatever. That would be easy to do. I don't think it costs a lot of money to survive in India. Especially if you have a little bit of skills for anything, really. You find a small job and you have enough to eat. Yeah,
I mean, they did say his English was very good. So, I mean, if you find the right part of India, then, English is semi-widely.
So that's what I would do if I was him. Given the way I look, I couldn't do that.
No.
I would probably try to go somewhere else, but I would struggle to find a good place. But given the way he looks, he can easily disappear between the Middle East and India. No problem.
Well,
and nobody will look for him there.
You would probably disappear at the annual air guitar competition in
Finland. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Look for you in Helsinki. But for me, it's just a really, really sad story, and it just shows you that there's no such thing as a perfect family. No matter how good it looks on paper, it never is.